And then Chloe Dobbs walked into the studio and said, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. A bit flustered after TfL failed me, so...
Oh, there's been a lot of that going on. Our Amy...
Sadiq Khan's just been knighted, and I don't think he deserves
Sadiq Khan's been knighted, and both your train and our Amy out there, her train yesterday was... Well, we actually think she went somewhere, but she says a train broke down. And,
oh, no.
Yeah, well, we're giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Well, Rachel Reeves is throwing a load of money at the trains, apparently, so I'm sure they will work perfectly after that.
Chloe, Rachel Reeves is throwing money everywhere.
I know.
She is the magician of the financial world. Everyone's there's a few people not getting a slice. The old Bill aren't getting any money, it seems, and they really need it. So we'll just see the carry-on of shoplifting continue, and mobile phone theft and all that stuff where you really do need more bobbies on the beat. Ain't going to happen by the looks of it.
Well, she claims that the money that she's put forward is going to put the 13,000 extra officers on the street that they've pledged to do so, but I will believe it when I see it.
But that was already penciled in, you know?
Yeah, I mean, she's had quite a war with Yvette Cooper over spending, but I guess she's managed to quell some of Yvette Cooper's anger by promising a load of money for the border force, or border fast, shall we call it, which I expect probably will do.
Do you know what is so
nothing? They're gonna have drones now, apparently.
Oh, for God's sake! Sajid Javid years ago, when he was Home Secretary, talked about drones, didn't he? In the show, we're going to send the drones and the cutters, and it was going to look like something from Full Metal Jacket's opening scene down there in the Channel, according to back then. And nothing really happened. And I still scratch my head, and I think I say this for the umpteenth time. When it comes to Channel migration, you've got two leaders, you've got two Home Secretaries, France and the UK. Two lots of border force, two lots of military, two lots of intelligence.
And you still can't figure it out.
And you still can't figure it out. Like 26 blokes on a boat, you can't stop them. Really? Yeah. How would either country fight a war if they can't stop somebody sailing over the English Channel? Well,
we're still giving all of this money to France. That hasn't been watered down at all. Rachel Reeves hasn't gone, OK, France, we need to cut down on our spending, and we've given you all this money and you've 100%. Done nothing with it. In fact, the percentage of boat crossings that they stop has actually gone down this past year. So that's what Rachel Reeves should be doing, but they're not tough negotiators at all. She's tried to win back the defectors to reform today by telling us, we're going to end the use of asylum hotels by the end of Parliament. But I'm sorry, we're not stupid. We know exactly what that means. If you are to fulfil that pledge, it will be that they are all in private rented accommodation. 100%. Instead, we're going to see mass evictions that make people absolutely furious. And another story that was out in the Sun today, talking about the cost of these hotels, shows that the cost of housing each asylum seeker per year in hotels has gone up from 17 grand a year in 2020 to 41 grand. 41 grand a year per person. That's crazy. And we learned that overall, that means that it's the amount of tax contributed by the whole of Manchester that is having to bear the cost of these hotels.
And the worst part about this story, when it comes to, tens of thousands of people stuck in hotels, around about 40,000 and growing, of course, and all that goes with it, all the issue with the border force, all of this could be stopped. You could stop all this. There are ways you could you might have to remove yourself from certain conventions, but you could address this. If you really wanted to, you could address it. And it wasn't in the Tories' DNA to really do this, it seems, and it's definitely not in Labour's.
No, absolutely not. I mean, they just do not have the political will to do what it takes. They can tell us they're going to smash the gangs as many times as they want, but let's not forget, this is the Labour Party that the first day they came into office, they decided to scrap the Rwanda plan. Many Labour MPs thinking that that was far too cruel of a policy. They're not willing to do what it takes. And this, when I mentioned that figure of 41,000 per person, that's just one example, I think, of many across, all various different areas where Rachel Reeves is spending money, where you could really go in with this, Doge-like approach that Reform are doing with the councils and make sure that there aren't contracts being handed out by government that are very poorly negotiated and way too high. I mean, you've spoken about the police force there. I reckon that maybe if they had really went through all their spending, got rid of whatever DEI officers, useless managerial wars and whatnot, they might be able to do something with the same amount of money to make the streets safer. We've got a really bloated state at the moment. We're spending far too much money. It just keeps growing and growing, the percentage of GDP that we spend, the government spends.
Indeed. And what about this as well, which kind of feeds into it? Illegal migrants paying up to 20,000 quid to fly into the UK using fake papers before sort of disappearing into the ether. I mean, this is just almost another chapter of this grim story, another tentacle.
Never ends. And we don't know, I mean, the police who have started uncovering this, they're saying, oh, we think we just scratched the surface on this. So how many people per year, on top of the people who have been coming across in boats and on lorries, how many more people a year that we didn't realise have been coming into the country this way? And this is something we really need to keep an eye out on, because if they do crack down on the small boats to some extent, the gangs that make all the money out of getting migrants into this country, they will move over to that trade. We had the lorries were the big problem before the boats, right? But as soon as we started to crack down on that with the big fines if you're found with migrants in your lorries, then of course the gangs adapted and they went for the boats. If we crack down on the boats, they will try something else, and we need to be ready to combat it.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, Greater Manchester Police have done some raids on this, you know, and these are mostly Iranian nationals. They've arrested 10 suspects linked to a trafficking ring. But I mean, this kind of stuff doesn't touch the sides. And I'm sure if you spoke to GMP, they would say, yeah, we could do more of this if we had more police officers.
Yeah, well, the police need to be able to attack this and make sure that the airports and border force, they are able to spot these fake documents. I hope that now they've been able to recognise that this is happening, that they're able to spot these fake documents. But as I said, these gangs, they adapt so well. If they figure out one way to spot these fake documents, they'll start charging more money for the service. It might go from 20 grand to 30 grand, and they'll make even more specialist documents. And what's really scary about this is that let's say some terrorist wants to come to this country. They don't have to go through this really slow route of illegal migration to get here with all these boats and different crossings if they want to get in the country. They could pay 20 grand and come straight here on one flight.
20,000 quid
This is not just a thing about the cost and of people coming to this country and the numbers of people within the country being too high. This is a serious security issue. We're being told by, you know, all the intelligence agencies, I mean, the terror threat in this country is at, you know, it's at its worst. But I don't think anyone quite gets it. I don't think people are quite recognising that the terror threat is where it is at the moment. I think,
it doesn't really get
talked about. And I hope
it
doesn't take us getting to a point of having a horrific attack for people to finally wake up and say, let's do something about this.
Let's move to this story. You referenced the man at the very beginning, Chloe. Sadiq Khan has officially become a knight. I mean, even that sounds quite funny when you put it like that.
I won't be calling him Sir
Sadiq Khan he's gone down to Buck House yesterday. He dropped onto one knee and they doffed the royal sword onto his shoulders, tapping away to make him officially a knight of the realm. I mean, if anybody deserved it, well, it's not Sadiq Khan, is it really? I do wonder with this, what did he do to get that? You know, you normally have to, even if you disagree with somebody getting a knight or a damehood, you'd normally go, OK, I'm surprised, but this is why they got it, for services. I can't work out, bearing in mind, being the Mayor of London is his job. You wouldn't think so, but that's literally his job. Isn't getting a knighthood, or shouldn't getting a knighthood, be something above and beyond your job, as it were, something a little extra?
Oh, but Ian, he was so extra by changing the colours on the overground line and renaming them like the suffragette line, the mild May line, the Windrush line. You know, isn't that just such an astonishing achievement? Far better than becoming, you know, an Olympic champion. It's embarrassing, and I am. The argument that we should just not do knighthoods for politicians, I think that I'm starting to fall on that side. I think it would, you know, the king is not supposed to be a political person. Can we just keep it non-partisan? And yeah, sure, there are politicians that we might think are fantastic. You might think, oh, Margaret Thatcher deserved to be Baroness Margaret Thatcher. But there are so many people who think that, you know, she was a witch and an evil human being. It's always going to cause controversy. Why don't we just do away with it for politicians?
Yeah, I think you could make an argument about that. So if you served in politics, MP, mayoral, House of Lords, whatever. Well, I was about to say you don't get a title, but I suppose if you're in the House of Lords, you've already got a title, haven't you? So,
of course.
But you take the point. Apparently, Sir Sadiq, as we now apparently have to call him, claimed that the king was chuffed to give the award himself, and they compared notes on being workaholics. I'd like to see what kind of work he does. Khan said that his mum had been emotional about the knighthood since January, calling it a great day for the family.
Well,
She's proud of her boy.
you know, every mum is proud of their son, so of course she is happy. But
even
I think
Sadiq Khan's mum.
I think the vast majority of Londoners, well, some idiots still vote for him, of course, but there are plenty of Londoners who are absolutely furious about the fact that knife crime has gone up, 40% under Sadiq Khan. That means, in my eyes, that Sadiq Khan has blood on his hands for people who have sadly died, been stabbed or seriously injured because of his failures. That's on him, I think, and he tries to. He's technically in charge of the Met Police, but
100%.
It's interesting how he never really takes responsibility and pretends like he's got nothing to do with them. This knife crime problem, it is his responsibility.
He is the Police and Crime Commissioner of London.
And don't get me started on the ULEZ expansion, which everyone knew was just a cash grab, and he tried to pay for all these studies to show that it was going to massively improve the air quality. They couldn't find any evidence, and tried to get Imperial to give him a nice study that would say what he wanted, and they couldn't find the evidence. He was pretty upset about that, but he did it anyway.
But Chloe, here's the thing: you will find more clips of Sadiq Khan talking about ULEZ than you will about teenagers dying because of knife crime. You almost hear nothing from him when another teen dies because of knife crime, when kids are running amok with literally machetes in their pockets, walking openly with a blade, and CCTV around, often even their faces. You don't see. Get him on cameras and nicking cars for a car that happens to be slightly the wrong model because it was like 3 months out of the criteria. He'll talk about that all day long. But kids dying, very little. But what do you get for that? A flipping knighthood down at the palace, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, every time I hear Sadiq Khan speak, I never hear about knife crime from him. What we hear about is how amazing multiculturalism is and how horrible Islamophobia is. I don't know if you remember before the general election, there was that super cringe, like, little sit down on the sofa video with him and Keir Starmer about how Islamophobia is, the number one problem facing this nation, and we really need to crack down on it online. No mention in that video of how awful knife crime is in London and how under a Labour government they're going to work together to really crack this. I mean, I know that Keir Starmer has said he'll halve knife crime, but I don't really see that message coming from Sadiq Khan. He doesn't seem interested.
Well, there's certainly no proof of that at the moment. Just a final one to finish on. Could Elon Musk be back? He's publicly apologised to Donald Trump after posting tweets calling for his impeachment. He mentioned him being in the Epstein files, which essentially is calling Trump as some sort of sex offender, potentially. But now might have gone a bit too far. I mean, we know, and I don't say this unkindly or as a pejorative, that Mr. Musk sort of does exist on a very specific spectrum somewhere. He is that kind of guy. People who are like that in business tend to be from a different stratosphere of the human condition, and that's often great and brings with it lots of attributes, but it also brings perhaps a loose tongue from time to time. When somebody tells you you've done something wrong or you've been somehow, put into a different light from the one you were in before, you react, and he did react, and some of the stuff he said was extraordinary.
Yeah, and if it is the case that he made that comment about the Epstein files with no evidence whatsoever and just said it on the fly, like, oh, that'll be funny, that'll put him in his place. I mean, that's not something that Donald Trump is going to forgive him for. If he did have evidence for that, then okay, but still, I think the way that he's gone about this fallout, I mean, it does look like a kid throwing a tantrum. And you're right that people who are on the spectrum, they do have a tendency to maybe say something really rude or inappropriate and not be able to recognise what the fallout of that might be, how it might make other people feel and think. And yeah, it doesn't come across very professional. And he may have apologised now, and maybe they can be on amicable terms, possibly, him and Donald Trump, but are they going to be best buds? Is the bromance going to be back? It's not. A lot of people are very upset. There are all these like breakup videos online, putting all the nice merry pictures of them together having fun.
I think Musk is a bit of a nut job, to be honest. I do kind of quite like him in loads of ways, but that's not like a easy swipe. I think most people go, yeah, he's a bit mad. But I mean, that's almost been his charm and his success is kind of based on that a little.
I mean, I'm very much of the view that anyone who is going to be extremely successful, becoming the richest man, in order to be so hardworking and so obsessed to be that successful, you're going to be weird. It's no surprise.
You've got to be a narcissist. You've got to be vainglorious. You've got to have all of these things going on.
Yeah,
and you've got to be willing to tread on a few minions on the way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say narcissist, but I'd say you've got to be a little bit crazy. I do think it's quite common that people who are like that hardworking and that obsessive over their goal and their business and whatnot, they might be a bit on the spectrum. But that, of course, has its other attributes, like maybe, as you say, having a bit of a loose tongue.
Yeah, I mean, look at Mother Teresa. She was an absolute fruitcake, for God's sake. Chloe, on that note, thank you. Good to see you. Chloe Dobbs with us on the programme.